I'm using computer audio. Okay. Rough agenda is explore the board. When I talk about the mayor and whether or not,
try not to do that.
well, how do I phrase how
You
the
don't have to phrase
grant is going?
how what grant is going.
How do I say that the shipping
We don't know where
container?
grant's going. Here we go.
No,
There we go. That's how you frame it.
okay. But that we got it for the shipping container grant, right?
That's what we got it for. The mayor's been a little preoccupied.
Okay, that's what I can say that.
You can say that now.
Okay.
Hi there, this is Katie with KaBoom.
Hi, Katie.
Hi, how are you? Is this Monica?
Yes.
Hi, nice to meet you.
Nice to meet you as well.
Just in my bedroom, you know, working from home. How are you? I like your background.
And Jim is with us, Jim Ross.
Hi, Katie.
Oh, there you are.
Jim,
Hi.
nice to meet you as well.
Jim's just in the background here.
Gotcha. I'm very curious about this virtual background that you have in place.
Awesome. How long have you been with KaBoom?
I've been here since the beginning of the calendar year, so just about 8 or 9 months, and been working remotely for the bulk of that time, which has been kind of interesting. But yeah, we've been working from our home since March, and we're not going back anytime soon. So this is work has become. I'm sure you're familiar with that.
Yes, we are. We are. Jim has been in the field of digital learning and digital transitions in industries. Before getting involved with K through 12, it was the auto industry and kind of transitioning from those process-based workflows into something new.
Katie, who would ever imagine that it would take a pandemic to move everybody forward a decade?
Mm-hmm. This is quite the opportunity for your line of work, I must say.
We have universities, we have business, and we have schools, all about crash. And what's really interesting is they're all taking place at the same place, home. So we have home for work, we have learning from home, and if I'm not mistaken, then the kids will be learning how they're going to be working in the future.
That is quite an interesting perspective. I hadn't thought of it that way.
Well, we believe that nexus, that intersection, has lots to offer everyone in terms of discoveries. You know, for instance, even in the arena of advanced education, their thinking had been that they had technology, but what we found out is they hadn't really utilized technology. And we just got off a Zoom call with Oakland University here locally to talk about how we frame a program for global human systems around the concept of using the Phoenix Center as a backdrop for bringing people together. And of course, bringing people together now has been set back, and movement to cities, which has been going on quite nicely for the last half a decade or more, is now held hostage to getting past the pandemic, and then for a period of time, the brain won't accept that we're moving right back to density. So for some time, we have to find other ways in which to communicate value and bring value to city-centric propositions such as the Phoenix Center. It kind of is, you're neither fish nor fowl in the moment. And what's really interesting, in my opinion, is the young people who are going to experience this are going to get a distinct advantage, a distinct insight that they wouldn't have gotten in any other fashion, that may serve them extraordinarily well as they go from high school to college or from college to work.
Absolutely. it's an interesting time to be innovative. I hope at least that is something that comes out of this, is innovation and adaptation.
Yeah, exactly. And I think KaBoom is just like in this really catbird seat. Particularly because of the nature of the work that you do, but more importantly, your focus on the creative element of the social engagement. I think that's going to prove to be one of the most powerful areas of interest, particularly as we watch cities have to transition this intersection of I'm supposed to be here, but I'm not, and I'm supposed to be coming, but I'm not, and I'm not going. So I'm both concerned about it and I'm excited about it. We just discovered a grant that goes to the kind of thing that higher education could partner in this challenge that we were just describing. And we're going to forward it to you and see what your thoughts are, because I think you would have some instincts that aren't usually understood deeply by academia.
Interesting. Okay.
It's a quite large grant initiative, but it goes to the very heart of what we've been discussing and what we've been describing, and our efforts on behalf of the Phoenix Center, and our efforts on behalf of the city of Pontiac and the region, and then with this this pandemic proposition, a moment to take a breath and gather our understanding. With that, I'm going to let Monica talk again about the efforts on behalf of the existing grant, and additionally, the progress that we're making on the other proposal.
Great, thank you.
So you're seeing my screen, correct?
Yes, I see it all.
Okay, okay, good. What'd you say? Yeah. So I'm going to give you just a quick little overview of our process and how it works with project-based learning, digital learning, home-based learning, play, and resilience facilitation, as well as connecting those things to cities. And we're real big, as you know, preaching to the choir here, but kid-centered cities, Organization for Children, UNICEF, and we've been working with Placemaking X and Placemaking US to kind of develop some pilot programs around this. But this is our process. It's really simple. The simplicity is what tends to throw most organizations off. But we just start with a simple vision and game plan, beginning with blank screens. This is a project we've developed, of course, so it's got a lot of elements already, but you start with your simple vision plan, and you've got your intentional. This is what we developed for the Playful Discovery Phoenix Center grant. So you start with that, and we'll update the KaBoom logos and all of that with the new to represent that, but you've got your intentional element as the vision, your bold steps that you're taking to get to the vision, the values. Here we should have filled in play, resilience, openness, inclusion, those kind of things you would just tag there. And then supports, we put our letters of support, so we've got them, and I'll show you where those things are. So and then our challenges, of course, our city politics. Pontiac may be a unique center for that, but we have fun anyways. we're hopeful. And then the tent poles, these circles here are just the tent poles that hold the vision up. So we put Phoenix Center and Resilience and our downtown Pontiac Summer Youth Program, and then you know, kind of in the middle here is what's the real kind of focus, and then you move over to your game plan, and you've got more buckets for team and resources. The success factors you want to document along the way, just even little wins if you're dealing with something quite complex and challenging, just to make sure everybody knows that there are we are overcoming hurdles here and there. And then the challenges, keeping those up front and center, because we know organizations love to sweep things under the rug sometimes. So keeping the wicked problems and challenges up front, and documenting the stages and tasks as we're getting to the target. And our target, of course, a larger outcome that we've wanted intentionally from the start, like in engaging with KaBoom, is a community-driven public plaza, and we just see KaBoom as a great partner organization that we don't, and same with Placemaking X and others, that there's no real overcoming institutional values or missions. So we're already on the same page, which is and then kind of highlighting like your primary objectives and other objectives along the way. And then all of these buckets, and then we have, just simple design process for people kind of getting familiar with the way design works. Is, we're starting from empathy, defining, ideating, prototyping, and testing. And, just typically we're doing those things all at once, and it's if you're working on something large, but some organizations kind of love to have that structure and say, oh, am I doing it this way or whatever. And then these are just some little definitions from the Harvard Business Review by Tim Brown about what leadership looks like under a design thinking model. Like it's got a different kind of take and approach. And so these just kind of highlight that. And that's kind of like the general templates that we have. And then these boxes here are where we're kind of highlighting all of the works that are, part of, if we had resilience as one of the tent poles, over here we've got a box that kind of highlights the resilience initiative that we did with our Oakland University partnership around trauma and addressing trauma. And we presented as a collaborative at the ERA conference in Toronto in 2019. And our goals are to get a therapeutic platform moving along with play at the center of that. And it's sort of a low cost, easy to do, since kids are pretty good at play, and just little simple insights that sometimes elude even the great organizations of our higher learning institutions. And down here we had, this is the Hidden River Park, our shipping container concept, and that was a park project that we've done. We got a city grant, neighborhood empowerment grants, to do a community redesign. This is our initiative here. And then evolving from that, we thought a great concept would be shipping container to kind of hold gardening supplies, large scale games, and then also have a digital facilitation so kids would engage in our downtown. Our downtown is quite empty and void of community and kids. So that's something that works on a number of levels. And then, so you can just see like generally how we kind of go about working. And then the real magic is who's all on the page together and who's actively engaging in work in this fashion. And then we were kind of weaving together resilience as the fourth R, and in schools it's, we kind of stripped away play and science and recess and art. All of those are gone, and we're left with the basics of reading, writing, and arithmetic, and they call those the 3 R's. And so we said resilience is the fourth R. And this is just, more kind of supporting evidence of what the ROI on doing resilience-based initiatives is for schools. And this is a pilot that we did with kids, doing sticky notes and design thinking in a pilot program we did with Weber. What'd you say? are amazing at design thinking. The older kids take a little bit longer to kind of get the trust level and feel like they can be open, but younger kids just will stick you to the wall, and they just get so excited that anyone even thought to ask them a question and about what they might think of the world. And so we just think design thinking and play, all that kind of fits together in a really potentially powerful way. And we're working toward, the parking day. One of the main reasons for our call is we want to kind of demonstrate and do this kind of live interactive, and we've done a couple with the South Florida placemaking group, and they're West Palm and Miami, and we had a great group of people come together to kind of facilitate a placemaking declaration. And then we did something for Earth Day. We piloted this in Chattanooga for the placemaking week, and we had the kids that engaged in our KaBoom. We did get a $56,000 grant with KaBoom for the Hidden River Park. Our original grant was for the Phoenix Center. That's why all of this stuff has the Phoenix Center focus, but our mayor and city have been a bit overwhelmed with that site, so it's been on hold. But we think that it might be a timing.
Loosening up.
It's loosening up a bit. We'll just say that. And it's this site has gone from being on the demolition side of things to now it's 6 years later the city has to do something with it, and we've gone through 2 years of them going back and forth about financing, but never talking very much at all about what was going to happen there and how it was going to unfold and who was going to be involved. So not much at all on the table for the community, and not at all for kids. So we just think that parking day, and our mayor and our city are very interested in parking day. They follow everything that we do, and it should be an interesting, fun conversation. We're trying to play with this idea of what does it look like to do something. What does it look like to get all of the people that you would ideally want on that site to kind of immerse themselves in the problem of it, and we'll do some like introductory kind of visuals and aerial shots and immersive kind of feature introduction of what's all there. I mean, it's right next to our Pontiac Transportation Center. There's 2 open office towers. One is half filled, not currently, of course, because they're working remotely, but with our Michigan Department of Health and Human Services. And then it sits right next to the 6.5-acre rooftop plaza. So no cars. It's could be a playscape sent from heaven if we can get it right and do it the justice that it deserves asset wise, and our community social wise. So any thoughts? I don't want to go on here.
I have tons of thoughts and questions. I guess just for clarity's sake, for parking day, can you give a little bit more context as to what it will contain, and kind of what will be pieces that you would like my presence most for? I think in terms of that day, I'll be able to attend for a part of it. So if there's a certain part of it that would be most appropriate, or something that you would really like to ask of me, I'm happy to kind of start thinking about that more critically. But frankly, I don't have a ton of context as to what the day will look like. So any more of that would be super helpful for right now.
Okay. Well, we're still developing the outlines of the program, and we'll be sending out some speaker supports of the general outline. We will have a structure kind of focused on an introduction of the Phoenix Center, looking at policy making. We'll have some of our state reps here, our state senator, our state rep will be participating. We'll be talking with the Oakland University Global Human Systems students about their comparing and contrasting Pontiac with other global cities, and you know, trying to understand its kind of challenges and hurdles. And we'll be looking at our K through 12 system, and what does a shift of the instructional model itself, not just to virtual, but what really is 21st century learning. There's an entire field of digital media and learning that our educators are not deeply aware of, and this abrupt change in the delivery system is kind of forcing that situation, because the kind of old lecture style form is not conducive, not to mention most of our kids, well, a good deal of our kids are not even connected, even if they are given a laptop here and there. But so we need to kind of, our main goal and ideal outcome is to develop a working model and some shared intellectual buy-in between a smaller focused group of people that can kind of move the conversation around out of school dynamic, out of school learning ecosystems. And we just see KaBoom because you've
project-based.
As project-based learning, as self-directed learning, project-based, play-based, just like really, you really have all of the elements to kind of help shape and guide that conversation without us, you know, directing exactly your participation, leaving it to you to kind of mull over and you know, see what I'm going to show you another board here.
Something that might fill 20 minutes.
Something that might fill 20 minutes, and you can tell us when you want to hop in and out, and you can be in and out of it as much as you'd like, and we can plan on, though, you are coming in and even try to fill you in if you weren't able to see like what led up to it, and kind of just facilitate your engagement and however you would like, however you'd like.
And a number of thought leaders will be getting together probably 2 or 3 times between now and the first, you know, of September, or rather the 10th of September, and then we'll have a week yet to fine tune it. So we have some education institutions, we have some governance institutions, we have some community institutions, and some community members who have been at community building for the last 3 or 4 decades. And additionally, the sense of possibilities from the various things that take place during parking day. You know, I mean, parking day has its own world of issues with relative to how do you build a walkable, engaged community opportunity versus a car-centric execution. So, particularly in Michigan, because of, and more importantly, in Detroit and of course Pontiac, cars have been the basis for our existence, and so the walking backwards from that being the center point to a conversation or an execution gives us, you know, all kinds of ways in which to inform and become informed about those kinds of elements that in 4 years, I think we've had maybe for the most part, you know, the initial kind of urbanistic proposition where we were doing parklets to make noise. And then from there was the focus on the community itself with Pontiac Main Street. And they picked up on facilitating and bringing forth good practicums. And then more importantly, more recently, autonomous vehicles and all that that incurs. And the emphasis on community members now is much richer and much wider. And you know, kids have not been something that has been a focus point in downtown Pontiac. And we're almost a committee of several that are focused on young people in downtown, because without young people in downtown, we really don't have a future. Few people recognize how important having an emotional tie to a city is. If I have no emotional tie, it's unlikely I'm going to live there. It isn't until I have an emotional tie that the thought occurs that maybe I should stick here. 60% of our best and brightest leave the state of Michigan. A big problem. And whereby education had always been something we were good at, most of the recipients of such transitioned to someplace else. And I think that has a lot to do with what was manifesting as our core industry, which was automobile manufacturing. And now that that's diversified across around the country and around the world, we're kind of looking for other ways in which to maintain the consistency of value. Pontiac happens to be in Oakland County. Oakland County is the 5th or 10th richest county in the country. So that says something, but I'm not sure what it says. It's the 5th or 10th richest county in the country. Pontiac's the county seat, and yet we have a very empty downtown. And I can't tell you why that is. I mean, I think you can look at the newspaper every morning now and determine some of why it is. There was a predisposition to suburbia as opposed to the city. That isn't unique to Pontiac or unique to Detroit or any other major metropolitan area. But over the last several years, there's been this huge movement back to the cities. And you know, between now and 2050, 3 billion people are going to move back to cities. So we get the transition, comes the pandemic, and nobody's moving back to cities. Unfortunately, cities supersede pandemics, or they have to this point in time. It's yet to be determined whether this one is going to be unique. But I think the city, you know, finds itself in an interesting place, being in the 5th or 10th richest county in the country. And we just had a transition of power. The fellow who has been the county executive for the last 3 decades has unfortunately passed away, and therefore we have a new power structure unfolding. And they're really looking at the kinds of things we're talking about, whereby previous administration was not interested in the city as a spot to rebirth, was more interested in assets and suburban propositions. And I think that's a big shift that is happening, and a big shift that we're going to have to deal with. And why I think the Phoenix Center is such an incredibly important part of downtown. It offers that kind of approach and the freedom to imagine and create. And it's got, as Monica was talking about, 380,000 square feet of open office space and a fiber optic network. And most cities, if you said that, you'd be inundated with entrepreneurship. And yet when Amazon was here, they said, we don't have any mass transit and you don't have any talent. But we are the 5th or 10th richest county in the country. So I'm assuming there's some talent still left in Oakland County. And so we're kind of looking at the Phoenix Center as that kind of magnet, because it has the legacy affiliations with transportation and things you're not going to see replicated in other environments that are just getting past the mid-century point of evolution. So we think Pontiac, being the county seat in the 5th or 10th region, has an opportunity to rebirth itself, and you can't get any more important than young people and their engagement and ability to impact their city. We bring kids down here, and trust me, they're so excited to be in the place where they haven't been, but they've heard about. Mom or dad or someone, auntie or whatever, has told them about the city so when they come here, they're enthusiastic and excited. And I think that's an important thing in our efforts going forward, in terms of meeting the moment. I hate to say the pandemic in some way is blessing that proposition, because if you need space in order to socially distance, then an empty city might be a good place to be doing those kinds of things. From a standpoint of capacity to intrigue, Pontiac has a lot of interesting points, a lot of interesting historic elements, a lot of interesting new themed, besides restaurants and stuff, new themed entrepreneurial efforts. And I think a good deal of that has to do with the fact that the city itself kind of sits centrally located, and you have to go by it a lot in order to go east and west and to some degree north and south from Detroit north. At the end of Woodward, and Woodward is like, US 1, and it finds itself at the juxtaposition of having been a unique brand, and then of course we don't make Pontiac motor cars anymore, but the point is that we did. And a great deal of that infrastructure and legacy elements are important in how cities then are dynamically evolving today. But you wrap that all up in a sense and focus on the most important part. I think the most important part of Pontiac's future success is young people.
Mm.
Then we can get on with the, we're going to be the entrepreneurial tech hub or some such thing.
Thank you I'm just taking some notes too. That's super helpful context, and frankly something that I wish I could have read in my research of the area, but is such better insight to hear it from you. And I guess just kind of rewinding, I appreciate also the framing. I was unaware, I had a misunderstanding about how I would be participating in Parking Day, but this is really helpful, just understanding what all this is, all the context and kind of intention this day will be, and I'm very excited about it. And yeah, in terms of the kind of how it'll all be put together, I'm curious about the timeline a little bit, and we can go into some logistics, but I really appreciate just kind of hearing more about both of your insights and all of this work that you've been doing and clearly care about. So thank you for all of that. I don't have any specific questions, I suppose, about this. Was there anything else that either of you wanted to share, or anything else that I should know at this point?
No, I think we've kind of covered it. In as I said, we're going to bring some of the thought leaders together who have some additional insights that I think are important, and we'll make you aware if it works for your scheduling and so forth, and everybody can arrive at such and such point and share again. I think the comfort will begin to get a bit more intense, and I think the learning opportunities that some of the other individuals offer, especially from the state governance side. Michigan's currently suffering a few $1 billion deficit, and they have to find some creative ways in which to bring value. And so some of our state reps and stuff and senators are really very interested in what we've been doing, who attended and post election, and we happen to host some of the election here in our incubator for a year or so. And I think those relationships continue today as we were either vociferous supporters or had some certain questions that we felt needed addressing, such as education. And the statistical element of a city that's 60% or 70% African American. So all of those issues, I think, also address some of the timely things that are orchestrating out in a daily basis. So I think it all points to having some, interesting opportunities for dialogue and interesting opportunities for discussion that may become informing and enlightening.
Mm-hmm.
And we'll have some fun. I mean, we're big about making work fun. A lot of people think that sounds trite. And if you think it does, then it probably is. But for those people who are hard workers and do deeds of daring, which we like to think we do, if you're not having fun, there's only half the reason after that to be doing it.
I'm really looking forward to it, and also just to dig in a little bit more. I've done, some just kind of looking into your past with KaBoom and kind of the projects you've touched, and how it also relates to the Play Everywhere Challenge, which is what our current focus is in Southeast Michigan. So I was also wanting to check in on, my understanding was that the Phoenix Center was the most recent idea that you had worked on, and was wondering if there was still interest in that for this year funding, which I think you spoke to. It's still in a sort of limbo state, but if you also wanted to speak to that now, and we can pick that conversation up.
Well,
yeah, I'm just going back to the KaBoom grant. We think that it's at a point now where you speak about that, Jim. Where is that right now?
Where's that?
The Phoenix Center and the Play Everywhere. We do want to submit for that.
I think we need to. There's a lot of politics, as I'm sure you're aware, because we've mentioned it so many times, and like a lot of institutional efforts, you can get mired in the crossfire, and right now that's kind of where we are. There's a settlement agreement that the state of Michigan has imposed. It has about $20 million of spending that has to be done. They've spent no time doing anything. Strangely enough, I assume it's because they feel as though the back and forth is doing something, but back and forth is not doing anything. And they're due on November 1st to get a decision. And then additionally, the city council has been adamant in not pursuing the mayor's leadership, and so we have a little dysfunction going on. But the other thing is that there is an offer currently for its purchase in tandem with the two office towers. That just happened last week. It's going to be discussed tonight again, I believe, during city council. We'd have more information. They just read it into the record. No one's seen the deal on paper yet. And that can satisfy a lot of things very quickly because money has a way of doing that. But I have yet to hear one word about what they might do. I mean, I know that purchasing, facilitating the purchase and that is doing something. But then day one comes where you have to actually begin to orchestrate something. And I haven't heard a word about that. And so we're quite tuned into that, tied into that. We have mutual relations throughout and such. And so we're interested tonight in the city council meeting. We'll have a better idea tomorrow morning. Because it appears to me that although it's possible to be resolving the problem, they may not have a plan to facilitate the solution. And there we might find ourselves in a very good place. To that end, we're looking at this other grant that I mentioned earlier, which is a pretty significant grant from the Department of Education. Because I think the situation that the pandemic is producing is also an accelerator opportunity. McKinsey and Company's written a lot about the acceleration that the pandemic has brought to bear on business, and then migrating across other silos as well. And so someone might be complaining about the situation they find themselves in, and then others are finding themselves in very interesting places because it's moved the agenda. We're fortunate. We've been busier now in the last 3 or 4 months than we were in the year before. We have these side jobs that we use as ways of driving interest and imagination and creativity, and then there's the traditional, day-to-day, and now we're working with universities and K-12 education and some businesses and entrepreneurs on various elements, and our books kind of filling up.
I mean, yeah, that's positive, I suppose. It's as you said, it's affecting industry differently. Oh, you just froze. I'm sorry.
You cut out a little bit, Katie.
Well, I thought I was talking over you because it cut out on your end, and I wasn't sure if you'd finished. But anyway, we're back. No, I'm glad to hear that you've been more busy and that it's been an opportunity for you in this last phase, and especially in the projects that you want to do. I'm glad at least that was a result of the state of things. And I also see now this application that you pulled up for the idea form for last year.
Yes, and so this, just further kind of demonstrating how much relevant data that this process can capture and hold. And we shared this board with you, so you can click into that, and that's the PDF that KaBoom shared back with us after we submitted. When we were granted, it was for the Hidden River Park with our city, and we were the partner with our city on the Hidden River Park because, they just at that time weren't ready to partner on that, but we just went ahead and, for the record, submitted. But this is probably the same concept that we're going to go with, and we had a number of letters of support from our business community, from the Crowfoot to Oakland University to community leadership. That's Maddie Hatchett. These letters of support, if you want to click through and take a look. But our District 1 downtown council person is Patrice Waterman. She signed a letter of support, and so we've got a good kind of loose collaboration, multi-sector orchestration that we can go ahead with. And I believe our mayor will want to partner at this point. We're not sure, but we'll we think. Is it still that is the grant still hard around city partnership and those kind of things?
Yeah, it has not changed much since previous iterations. The only thing is there's a slight change in requirements with having a designer consult on the project, which just sounds like that's already kind of taken care of in your case. But this is called the Play Everywhere Design Challenge to make sure that everyone is working with a creative type, even an architect or a muralist or something along those lines.
Wow, we love that.
Yeah, it sounds like it's right up your alley.
If we can help at all with any other projects, we're open to that as well.
If you mean that, that's actually something we're very much looking for. That's more my colleague actually who's been doing outreach to designers specifically to pair them with groups who have already applied. But if that's all right, I actually might connect you to her just to see if there are other groups in your county too that are looking for designers right now. So
yes,
yeah, that'd be great.
Yeah, we're open for that. We're really interested in that.
We're easy.
Yeah, we're easy. We keep ourselves open for the fun stuff.
That's great. You're great. That's really, really great to hear in general, and specifically for this program that is super relevant. But so besides the designer element, it's essentially the same. And I want to take a look back at your record as well and see kind of internally what notes there were. I think I reviewed it a couple of weeks ago, but I think that you could submit essentially the same concept. I will say the application is just a couple of weeks away. The deadline for idea forms, I should say, is September 11th. So if there are any tweaks or adjustments you want to make, we can work back and forth and collaborate on that in the next 2 weeks.
Awesome.
And then from there would be, if you're advanced as finalists, a full application, which is due in October. So that's the timeline for this year's cycle, but it is a year to be able to actually install and implement the idea. So if it works better at some point, you know, even summer of next year, that is great. That's the timeline we're looking at. So that all sounds like it aligns. We're definitely interested in, you know, having your idea form in, and we can start or kind of restart that conversation.
Great. Wonderful. Yeah, we'll just tweak it a little bit to probably outline some of the things that Jim was talking about with work and learn from home, and the digital disruption, I guess, that this pandemic is causing in education and cities.
Mm-hmm.
But yeah, it'll still be the same premise around resilience and play and trauma and public spaces.
Wonderful.
Fun. Yeah.
That's definitely, those are the themes we're going for. And it's great to also work with a group that already gets that and is looking at those broader themes and correlations. I also tend to nerd out about those things and always appreciate having conversations about those deeper issues. As much as I think everyone intuitively knows how important play is in public spaces, I think you have a lot of the language to kind of speak to all of the different elements, factors that play into it. So I'm excited then to get that idea, or, you know, propose that idea again for this year's funding. And the other detail, I'm not sure if it changed from previous years, is the grant amount is between $10,000 and $80,000 per grantee. So if you're thinking about, I'm not sure actually what the proposed budget is, but just to keep in mind.
Okay, perfect. There are these little, just a little side note, there's these little kind of sunken plazas, they call them, that are on top of the Phoenix Center. So there's a 6.5 acre plaza, but then there's these little like staircase sunken plazas that could be perfect little pilot kid spaces and play pods or climbing walls or all kinds of fun things that could go in there.
Awesome. Yeah. Perfect. That's very, you already obviously get the idea and the concept really well, and that sounds like it aligns great.
Yes.
Then if we could find our way to the human services that are on the first 8 floors of the tower that is connected to the Phoenix Center,
Mm-hmm.
we might find ourselves in a state situation.
Yeah. That's our sort of insight is kind of fun to watch. Things that we've taken away is that our state of Michigan has all kinds of departments that do focus on placemaking, like for recovery, redevelopment ready cities, those kind of things. And placemaking is always the #1 on the hit parade. And then if you go to probably the best asset that Michigan has for placemaking, and you probably are familiar with Campus Martius and downtown Detroit, and you know, the Project for Public Spaces did a lot of work there, and I know KaBoom does a ton of work in the neighborhoods, which is so important. But our state of Michigan's situated on a 6.5 acre public plaza in a transportation center, human services, but has never quite connected those dots yet. So that's kind of something that's kind of fun to play with anyways. Maybe solves a lot of issues for our state around trauma, and like 80% of kids in Detroit and Pontiac schools are traumatized, and that's even worse now with the pandemic. So just things like that that offer fun little things to have in the back of your mind as we're having a conversation with some of our state reps.
No, absolutely. We actually, I'm not entirely sure if it'll be fully public, but we've been doing an internal literature review on resilience and how play has a factor in recovering from trauma, especially around the pandemic, which is why we began it. And I was actually on that team, so I have been kind of finalizing what we're going to put out, but it's feels very relevant. We've looked at at natural disasters, as that's what we're more commonly, related to in terms of traumatic experiences. The pandemic is new and we don't have specific data about what a global pandemic does, especially for kids. But it's been really interesting to dig into the literature. And if we're able to share that, I'd be happy to share that too.
Yeah, we would love that.
And we've been working with Oakland University on an OU Pontiac initiative to the early childhood learning proposition, and resilience is a huge piece of that equation. Doing that for the last year and a half, so we have some experience and we have some centers of need surrounding the community, and part of our strategy is to have the Phoenix Center act as a convener to bring people back into the city, and it could be around something like resilience and trauma and play and such. And that's actually what the Phoenix Center originally was intended to do, was be a place of plaza, if you will, for people to communicate off site from work, and then the city took it over and created an amphitheater and a parking deck, and in doing that closed off the opportunity that the Phoenix Center was to the community. And the community has never been back, and although they have fond remembrances of their downtown, it usually is the Phoenix Center that they remember, which is a really strange thing. Of all the things you might remember your downtown for, it would not necessarily be the central plaza and what took place there. But that was so important as a community gathering place that's what they all remember. Is they actually voted to keep it from being demolished, to their credit. We spearheaded that effort by doing design charrettes and informing and so forth and so on. So we take great pride in them having made that case by vote.
Absolutely. Sorry, I occasionally can't hear you too well, Jim. That's why I'm leaning in. But I got the.
Oh, I'm sorry.
No, just that right at the end there. But besides that, I definitely got the gist. A big part of the literature review is place attachment, and also loss around place attachment, and how that is traumatic in itself. For kids right now to not be able to be in public spaces, particularly play spaces, definitely correlates to that. Or if there's that comes out after all of this. But
wow,
yeah.
That's great. I can't wait to see what your insights are producing.
Yeah.
Body of work. Great. So, anything else? Any other? We appreciate you engaging with us, Katie.
Of course. I didn't necessarily know how much I was going to be putting in, using my brain in all of these ways. I love it.
Thank you for that feedback.
I definitely, and again, just sort of framing the engagement with the parking day. I think that was also what I had to reorient myself to, but I am so in and really appreciate all of this information and insight, and look forward to working with you, I guess, on both of these projects, getting an idea form, an adapted idea form, and then also that event in just a few weeks. So thank you both.
Yes.
Birds of a feather flock together. Did Placemaking US have a play thing?
Yeah, they're doing play. Yeah, do you follow the Placemaking X networks very much, or?
I do not, no.
Okay, well, that's another fun one that we can work on is they just launched a Play City challenge. Well, Placemaking X did. And we are doing some orchestrations with Placemaking US with the South Florida group we mentioned and those things. But yeah, they're just launching now a Place City Challenge, and maybe we can play with that.
Yeah, there's an access point.
There's-
I think.
there's
coming
Yeah,
up.
Yeah.
absolutely. That sounds super aligned as well. And you should see my notes. I have filled, an entire page with all after the call. So I'm excited.
That's great. If you come up with any thoughts afterward, you can leave us a sticky note.
There you go. Now I'll figure out this platform.
Yes.
We have a real good relationship with the leadership there, and we're new to them, but they were so taken with the way in which we work that we had enough interaction with them that they're trying to figure out how to make it work, how to take our process and use it for their organization. Which we find quite intriguing and exciting, that they would recognize how valuable that could be. I mean, productivity is such a key asset. And I would say this process, as it is, would increase productivity by 10, 20, or 30% to any organization. And the reason for that is the visual learning and the fact that immediately when we hang up, I will have ideas I wish we would have conversed, and I will say, I will wait till the next meeting, and so forth and so on, where this thing is available 24/7, 365, so you wouldn't have to wait at all. And if you think about the productivity over an organization's execution, I mean, the numbers are incredible. So everybody's looking for 2 or 3%. Gee, if you were to tell your CFO, I figured out a way to get 3% better over the next year, he'd think you're a god. And the human resource person would go, that's impossible. And the vice president would say, well, that could get me president, and so forth and so on, because it's that kind of dynamic. And the pandemic has unleashed a monster in that it's created an acceleration opportunity inside of a deceleration execution. And I hate to say that it's a curse and a blessing, but it is. It's forced everybody to recognize. Yeah, it's forced everybody to look at things in a different fashion and see both sides of a conversation. That typically, if you have a position, that's your position.
No, I'm also excited to engage with this platform, and yeah, I won't necessarily say that I expected or am currently seeing all of the increased productivity around the world, but I believe you that it is happening somewhere. And I really am excited to work with this platform and try out things that I'm not already familiar with in terms of virtual engagement.
The convincer is kids are so good at it. It's just, you say to yourself, is this thing really good? And you get a 7, 8, 9-year-old, and they're pushing it. In other words, they can take ownership of it. They feel very comfortable with it. They're excited about it. And the job of teaching is over because they're so engaged in the learning. And we're learning from them about the human aspect of this and how deep it can go.
That indicates, I mean, kids also of this generation have a totally different way of engaging with.
Yeah.
But it's,
Yes.
Yeah.
But we're looking forward to it, and too much fun.
Yes, too much fun.
Too much. Well, great. Thank you both. I also will follow up with my colleague and connect you about potentially consulting with other groups as designers. Which thank you for your interest in that.
Awesome.
Yes, awesome. Wonderful.
We'll keep in touch then. We'll be in touch.
Okay, Katie, we'll be sending some outlines and stuff your way when it gets a little more solid.
Awesome. Perfect.
Okay, great.
All right. Be safe.
Thank you. You as well.
Bye, Katie.
Bye.
You're just in front of your green screen, huh?